Righto, guys. Thank you. We'll open the ICM meeting. Welcome, everyone. We will start with apologies for today's ICM meeting. We have Chair Hale, Coroner, Councillor Gibson, and Councillor Roy. I please have somebody to do that. Yeah. Councillor Rose and seconded Councillor Hobson. Right. Declarations of interest.
John, that I'm the trustee.
We did have in public forum petitions and deputations, we did have Josh Spargo was coming to speak.
Josh sends his apologies. Is something come up at work at Invercargill, or sorry, South. See if there's a potential reschedule it, but
Yeah, no, if you need to get from another one, right? Thank you. Any more to add to that? Questions and deputations? No. Can I have someone move it, please? Young, I'll see you. Thank you. Right, move on to confirmations of minutes. The discussion required on previous ICM minutes. Thank you.
happy to see you.
It's Morrison.
Right.
Notification of extraordinary business. Yeah. Questions? Councillors' reports. I'll probably start with just a quick verbal. We posted on our property, myself and my wife's place, a field day around resilience infrastructure and dairy expansion, and how that could look and how that can work through our past experiences. So that was held on the 19th of June. We had close to 200 people turn up, quite a varied group of people in the that attended, which was quite positive, and actually out of region, which was surprising to see the number of Otago people there, and some good engagement, and yeah, I think it was quite a successful day, and some really good discussions, and the way it was actually presented, we had a local reporter there in the Rural Life. It was quite good because we were just trying to share pathways forward, and I think the media really supported that. So my understanding is the professionals that were involved had a lot of contact from that. So yeah, positive all round. Yeah. Yes.
Could I just ask a question? No, I was just wondering, were there mainly dairy farmers there, or did you get people from the likes of NGOs and so forth?
Look, there were people that weren't dairy farmers that were considering either solar options or potentially conversions and how that would look. What interested me was the fact that there were people in Otago there, and the comments were they were looking for Southland for solutions around maybe just taking a slightly next level tier to converting under what Otago's rules are. So I found that quite interesting. So it's obviously on people's radars that they want to get it right, so they're not having to play catch up if there's regulation change. So I found that quite interesting.
But you didn't have anyone from any of the NGOs or any other interested parties?
There were certainly individuals in the crowd that would probably have links there, but no, not as representation. No.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can add to that as in respect to the paper. So I also attended John's Field Day, and congratulations. It was a wonderful day, very welcoming to a wide range of stakeholders, and there were certainly people in the crowd that represented dairy industry clearly, but also a number of dry stock farmers from around Southland and others from Otago. Congratulate John and Birgit for the very open and transparent discussion that was held. There's really a lot of interest in what we've done there, how it's worked, and also, I guess, great to see the resilience infrastructure being incorporated into the farm, both the wetland systems and the solar energy generation going forward too. So,
thank you.
Yeah, congratulations to you both. And the support team, because it was clear there was a lot of support around the day to make it happen. And then building on that, thanks John and Lucy for circulating this paper. I would caveat it by saying that it's an early draft, but John and I have had some discussions, and I think John also had some discussions with some of you as well around the value in developing an integrated catchment management reporting framework and an accompanying annual report card. And so after those discussions, Wayne have put together this draft sort of paper requesting some further discussion on the topic, and it didn't quite make it into the agenda as an item, but John was keen for me to table it this morning and to get a feel for the appetite among the committee to progress further investigation on the subject. So I guess context being that as we move towards changing transition governance arrangements and against the backdrop of some of the conversations yesterday, it's really important that the council communicates effectively around catchment health and integrated catchment management outcomes, and that we maintain an evidence-based, easily digestible tool that enables community stakeholders and council to track implementation and management, as well as see the regional trajectory towards a healthy catchment and integrated catchment management. So there's a bit of detail in there. I won't go through all of it, and circulate a sort of visualization that it could be. I think there's probably lots of opportunity to develop further if there's appetite within the committee to progress that. So,
and I just appreciate the work you put into this, and I think whilst we're not trying to create work for staff, I think it's trying to bring some relevance to linkages with farm plans and long-term plans. I think it helps feeds that decision making, so we're not just treating the region as one when we're looking at where our focus is. So just sort of reiterate that I think that's where a lot of this will lead us to try and bring some efficiencies around decision making and community understanding at a very micro level, property scale, help them focus on where maybe what we're looking for improvements on that space. So so open to discussion.
Well, I wonder how it could be incorporated into or relate to the state of the environment monitoring that we had a workshop on yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
That's clearly part of that. They're both related. You wouldn't want to be duplicating stuff, but you want it to be working as part of it. I'm not sure how that would work, but hopefully there can be some clarity on that as a result of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well done, Roger. Obviously, it is draft, and there is obviously work to go forward. But I think the concept's incredibly valuable to give suppose, some visual understanding from our community around where particular catchments are, and trajectory is. And to Morris' point, how it ties into those regulatory frameworks and our response to those. Good to understand.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this forward. Right at the moment, we've got catchment science summaries. In what ways is this product complementing, building upon, being different to those which kind of provide a current single stop snapshot for land users, albeit I imagine this might be less chunky or a little bit more accessible to a time poor land user?
Yeah, I think the way I at the moment thinking about that is that those summaries have been produced as a sort of standalone document at a point in time, and they, if my understanding is correct, were kind of primarily intended to feed into farm plan, sort of documents or on-farm planning, and they would continue to do that. But I guess this is taking that perhaps a step further in terms of providing a synthesis and a framework that gives a very simple visual tool to understand how fulsomely integrated catchment management's been, and it's there'll be quite a range across the region in terms of how they're implemented and what's available to support them, but it provides a kind of consistent framework that can be updated to track progress on implementation as well as outcomes. And ultimately, I envisage that there may be a couple of levels of information. So, at a first glance, you can look at it and get a visual indication from an infographic, speedo, I think was John's words when we've discussed it, speedometer kind of thing. So, different sort of infographic representations could be used there, but then underneath that would be, more and more specificity. And some locations will have lots available, and others it may be a bit more limited, but it'll be able to be updated over time to show progress.
Yeah, look, I'm quite happy to take it away, have a deeper read of it and reflect on it. I do see tomatoes why in there that's a really, really high standard, so I'm not sure that that's right, but the rest of it, absolutely, having something you can look at, yeah, and something that shows you where you're up to. We get much more than that since I just got it, so I'll come back to you. I have actually got a report too. Are we at a report, are we?
No, we'll finish the conversation on this because I know it's a wee bit clunky. It sort of didn't end up where I thought it might. It was just timing wise. So, is anyone got any more to add to that discussion, Lyndall? And then we'll come to you, David.
Thanks, Chair. The concept's really good, and apologies for not getting back to you. It's one of those things. I'd caution against perhaps too much detail if this is for external use as well. But having said that, I think that your 0.5 is where I would obviously, because it's a next step, focus. It'll be really important for us to know what data is available and where the gaps are, so that the report card is focused on the right things, I guess, and encourage us to use whatever. There'll be existing. I was going to say apps, but that's not quite the right word. Technologies that can generate this kind of thing for us. So, I wouldn't think that we would need to reinvent some of that. But to Morris's point, really helpful for us to make that loop that we were talking about yesterday with science and planning and strategy. And this would something like this would definitely help. And to David's point, I've only had a quick look, but I'd be a little bit cautious about how much detail we need, only because we need to keep in mind the end use and purpose. But that's a first look. But absolutely, infographics are really, really helpful, and for us, we can loop into the other reporting that we do. We just have to make sure it all comes together. But the concept is really good. So that's mine.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, look, yes, I've only had a quick skim through it too, and the basics of it I'm quite in agreement with, but I also note that Tomato Wai is mentioned there, which, as Councillor Rose says, it's a very high standard to aim towards, but at the end of the day, we do have to aim for good standards. There's no doubt. But look, my comment is largely around having some of this information collated and in a really digestible form that perhaps we can take forward over the next couple of years as we start to merge or whatever entity we end up in. So I think for that reason alone, it'd be really worthwhile. But yeah, I thank you, Roger, for the work you've done on it here.
Before we move on, Mr. Chairman, if I may, can we agree then that to the request that staff prepare a discussion paper for another meeting?
Yeah.
Taking down all the things to sort about incorporating it into our other state of our monitoring, or whether it's part of that or separate.
Yep. So do we want to collate? Do we want to give some feedback first to then, and it can just be literally on email, and then Lucy can take it to the staff and then action. Would that be better? Just so that I've got a good understanding where individual councillors are thinking on this.
I'd like to have a proper read through it.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying.
Come
Come back on it. We'll just set a timeline for the email once people have collected their thoughts on it, and then they can go to Lucy, and then Lucy can take it to staff. Is everyone happy with that approach?
Yeah.
Just through chat, what I would just suggest is if we circulate the paper as an attachment to your weekly newsletter and set a time frame for you to provide feedback into us, we can collate it, and then between myself and Karen and the other GMs, we can make sure that discussion paper's dealing to the wider range of questions that I can ask, and we can aim to get that out.
Do we need to action that, or is that just in the notes? It's fine. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Finished discussion on that, David.
Yeah, on the 18th of June, I went to a meeting where staff addressed the local community board in Winton. It's called the Ready. Southern District Council meeting really. Miss Debris, Gavin Gilder in one of the science team. I guess I was really impressed. They were talking about hazards and things, and that was really well done. What did come out of it was around flooding and the Section 73 notices that are being put on some people's properties. And there were a number of photos showing what happened in 1980 when the flood bank burst at Benmore and it came in. Dave Marshall was there and mentioned about the ski lane up near Dipton that's being built, and obviously in the same area where it burst in the 1980s. So that was put up as a concern. I'm not sure where we've got to with that as to whether it's anything to do with us, but there is a concern out there about what that could mean. I haven't got those 1980 photos with me, but it's the highest it's been, and the highest in the substation. They report the flood levels. It was way up there. So there's quite a bit of concern about flooding, and these notices that end up on people's property, they're accurate or not, but they can limit development and insurance and whole lot of stuff. So it was a very good meeting, actually. I think staff did well with the way they explained it. But it's certainly whatever, it flows through to insurance and what you can do on your property. So we've got to make sure modelling and stuff's right. And again, it brings into line some of the canoa work we're doing with the pinch points at Winton, where it could come over, where it's not and how that flows into people's daily lives.
Thank you. I'll just, Bruce is indicating he might respond to this. Hopefully, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chairman. Councillor Rose's concern, you probably understand about Section 73 notice is a notice under the Building Act, not the Resource Management Act, that has been imposed by the Building Consent Authority. So the Territorial Authority decision as to whether to impose that notice or not, that's often informed by a recommendation or from information that the Territorial Authority gets from us. This is very much a live discussion around the country. Obviously, there's been an elevated incidence of severe flood events. There's elevated focus on this from the insurance sector, and that's driving a lot more of these inquiries. And as per the report you got earlier this week, the scaling up of the inquiries is quite significant for the regional planning team, which currently deals with these. So this issue isn't going away anytime soon. Parties who have a Section 73 notice imposed on their property, they do have the ability to challenge that. There's been a number of those around the country. I guess it's fair to say, based on some recent national guidance, territorial authorities are taking more of a precautionary approach, looking to mitigate their liability and ultimately protect their ratepayers from potential liabilities that could flow from flood damage if they don't impose these sort of notices. Effectively, what the Section 73 notice does is signals clearly to not only that current building consent applicant, but a future purchaser who might go and look to acquire the property. They see the registration on the title that says there's a Section 73 notice. So it's a forewarning advice as well as an advice to the building consent applicant. And, you know, that's really something that has ramped up reasonably significantly in recent years, both driven by the frequency and intensity of flood events and the scrutiny that's coming through from the insurance sector.
Thank you. And while you're there, just touching on the discussion around, I had it in terms of ski lane, but technically it's a quarry. That's once again on the border of two councils, i.e. Environment South and Southern District. So it's a bit of a grey area. I guess what we're looking for is an answer from EU staff around concerns or where we see it. So I don't know which staff and where to look, because I know it's.
Mr. Chairman, I think we'll just certainly take that concern and follow it up from there between the Australian Regulation and the Integrated Catchment Management team and come back here.
So through you, Chair, following the last meeting when David Marshall had his deputation, so we did a little bit of digging around who had given permission and what it was for. So we had another look at the site and confirmed that excavation was for the gravel pits, but it does sit outside of that 20-metre bylaw setback. The proximity to the flood bank may still pose risks. We flagged those with SDC as part of the application process where they sought our feedback, but they were deemed to be not significant. So as you know, there's obviously risks can be highly site specific, and we could probably do some further technical analysis. Given that the consent has been granted, we've sought further clarification from SDC about any concerns they might have had that we haven't already heard about, and so that's been working through from the ops delivery side of things. So, and we've been obviously connecting with the SDC.
So I guess if the concern David's bringing, and
Well, the concern is a thing called piping.
Yeah.
And the concern is when the 5 metre depth, a kilometre long, myself, I live beside a bank and have blisters. And if you went 5 metres down, I don't know what you'd see, but I have heard secondhand that one of the river engineers that we used to have working here thought there was a concern about piping. So if Southern District Council want to take that on their own, if it breaks out like it did in 1980.
So through you, Chair, the consent's already been granted. So
Yes,
the consent
yes.
for that activity has already been assessed and undertaken, and therefore that's why it's happening now. It's got a consent to exist. The piece that David had brought to us in the last meeting in terms of deputation investigation was a request for us to have another look at it, which we did, and we noted that there could be risks. So the question that we're just working through is actually the scoping piece to see whether or not we need to go and have a detailed look at that site and see if there's risk of seepage or any ground instability or any other potential concerns. So it is being looked at, but the consent's been granted, and therefore anything we need to do now, we need to do it in partnership with both the consentee and with STC.
Yes, I guess as long as we have clarity as to where the responsibilities lie, because there's some high exposure, A, to the community, but B, also to this.
So one of the things that we're waiting on from the Southern District Council colleagues is making sure that what they have seen as part of the consent being granted, we've also seen. So we want to have a look at what they already got commissioned as part of that process, and then figure out what further actions are then warranted, what other investigations we might need to undertake.
Yeah, it sounded like because it was 21 metres back, I think 20 metres is the
20 metres is the setback for the bylaw.
that we originally were seen as not an effective. But given, I just want to have a river engineer say, nah, it's all good, or Southern District Council stand up really tall and say, well, we'll wear anything that happens out of this. And that we've done our bit to flag to them there could be a possible risk if they want to take that on their own shoulders. Good on them.
Yep, thank you. Chief.
Thank you, Chair. Look, can I ask through you, what was the purpose? Does anyone know of the that so-called ski lane? Was it actually a consent to remove gravel, or was the idea to build an actual recreational area there? Because I realise we're looking at this in retrospect, but it does concern me if someone has got a consent to dig gravel out of a perfectly good paddock in close to a flood bank, whereas there's probably gravel in the riverbed that they could put, or beside the river that they could have scraped out, and it would only be through a consenting process that would be different. So I do wonder what the purpose of that actual pit there was originally. Does anyone know that?
Yeah, the consents for 365,000 cubic metres of gravel to Big Street.
And so they've dug it in a length, so that there's no recreational issue about it.
The gravel
The consent is for gravel extraction. That's as far as the discussion can go.
Yeah. But I think through you, Chair, it would be useful for us, because we sent around the notes following David's deputation of what the immediate feedback was, but we can provide a further update once we've got that other pieces of information through. And then the question of whether or not we want to go and then do further investigations, that needs to be factored in terms of scale and scope, along with everything else. So yeah, we can definitely do that. I think bringing back a further update to you.
Thank you. Excellent. Any more reports? Thank you for that.
Just finally, I am aware in Winton recently of someone that was buying a house and it was all done on heights. And when they got to a certain height, and that's an interesting concept, because you could be lower than a particular height but have high land right around you and no chance of flooding. So this whole Section 73 thing is really affecting people's properties, and it seems like we need some pretty good information on it. I guess hopefully LiDAR in the future.
Briefly respond to that. Certainly agree. It's something that is closely scrutinised. LiDAR is useful for that. Historically, sometimes properties that were elevated a certain, usually with 600 millimetres above the previous flood level, wouldn't be subject to the old 362 certificate became Section 73 certificate under the Building Act. So sometimes if property dwelling height is elevated above a certain point, that can reduce the likelihood of a Section 73 notice being imposed. But that's ultimately the discretion of the territorial authority or the ruling authority. And mentioned earlier, most building consent authorities have toughened their stance quite considerably over the last few decades based on event frequency and some national guidance and insurance risk.
Thank you. Right. A lengthy chunk of reports, but Anyway. I guess what everyone was looking for, so thank you very much. We have someone move the reports. Thank you. And David, thank you. All those favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried, thank you. Right, 9.1, council workshop summary. Okay, my run sheet and my
Look at that.
paper underlined, sorry. Karen was in the room.
She'll be back in 1 second.
Right.
Do you want me to introduce?
Yes, maybe
Yeah.
Lucy can start.
That's
Thank
fine,
you.
no worries. Through you, Chair. So you'll remember that we had a workshop with you a couple of weeks back now on the 24th of June. As per our commitment to council at the beginning of the triennium, we intend to brief you on the Kānoa projects at least monthly. Those will either come to you via workshop or via a paper where these meetings allow for that. So our June conversation was a workshop. Given that it was held in public excluded for a range of reasons in regards to the commercial nature of what we were discussing, we thought it was pertinent to bring a paper through to yourselves today so that able to be publicly shared. And obviously following that workshop, the business cases and the other elements that we tabled with yourselves have now been made available on the website. So this was in order for us to table the summary of what was discussed and to enable any further conversation that you might have about Connor. And Karen is here as well as our program manager to answer any further questions or any introductory comments. Karen.
I think you covered very well. Thank you, Lucy. Just a comment, towards the end of the report, where observations and actions. So if there's anything you think we discussed in that meeting that maybe I missed or haven't covered off well enough in that table, please let me know. We have now got a program list of the actions that we've taken from this to, undertake those actions as we work our way through the next month of processes. So that's where we'll start to see the changes that were discussed. Found the meeting or the workshop very useful from my perspective to gain everybody's feeling on reporting, information provision, that sort of stuff. So I really appreciated that opportunity.
Thank you. Any questions? Also quite a good job. Thank you, Lyndall.
Yeah. I hesitate to say this out loud. The actions and next steps are great. So the consequential question of following that is the time frame for some of those.
Well, most of those things effectively happen within a monthly period. But I would expect that most of those will slide in as part of our process. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Karen. It certainly was very valuable, that workshop, and it's just given the governance the confidence that boxes are getting ticked and targets are on track. So that's, I guess, what governance was pushing for a while, and so thanks for responding so well.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome, thank you. Can I have someone move that, please? Second bell. Some favour? Aye. Gary, thank you. Right. Amy Lucy with operations delivery. Thank you.
So both we've got David and David with us today to talk through the ops delivery report. There's Dave's got some slides to share with you in regards to a couple of things that are happening in the pest animal space, but I won't do lots of talking, just let David take you through the paper.
I'll take the paper read, just highlight a couple of issues. Obviously, there's a lot going on around different reports. Hopefully, we've captured it briefly in here. operational priorities, we're pretty much through removing most of the debris from the storm event. That'll come back up to you as part of your annual report and about where we recover some of those costs from. Basically, there's a lot of work still proceeding, even though we are into winter. We are making reasonably good progress. You did see there's a couple, I thought I'd add a couple of photos just out of interest of the sort of some of the dams and the screens that we've got on them and what we had to clear from the event, I don't know, 10 days ago or whenever it was. So just to give you an idea on that. The biosecurity, we have put in funding for the next, I think you're aware that there is more funding for wildings, and we have put in, and you will notice that we have also put in an application for the Takatimu area. That's not one of the areas that has currently got it. Putting in an application doesn't mean that we'll necessarily get any funding, but I just thought I'll let you know we've put in the application. Your guess is as good as mine of whether we'll be successful, but at least we are trying, and that was part around the discussion on Douglas firs. We've got a preferred contractor that's been all finalised, resolved. They've run very successfully South Canterbury programs and bits and pieces, so that's transitions gone reasonably smoothly. And look, I've taken my hat off. Boffa Miscos have provided us a very good service over the last 15 years. I think they've been with us, and they were very, very good in the transition and whatever. It doesn't mean that we won't see Boffas down here doing other things, but I just want to reflect the kind of service that they've done for us. We are hoping to run a quick workshop for you on possum control. David and I are going to work through that. It is an action from the last committee, still sitting on my to do, so that will be coming up, and David and I are going to talk about it. But I'm going to quickly pass over to David, who's going to talk a little bit about bird flu and a bit about wallabies from the discussion yesterday. Just quickly, just on your discussion on Section 73, it's worthwhile noting that you can mitigate to remove that Section 73, and there's been a couple of court cases on that. However, they're saying from a flooding perspective, it must protect the buildings and protect the land, and it's got to be a protection of a 1 in 100 year flood, and it's got to be a Chartered Professional Engineers report saying it's got that level of protection, and that's gone through the court cases and a couple of things. So there are ways that you can appeal a Section 73, but it's quite a high test that you've got to get across if that's a test. We talked yesterday about the pathway management plan, so I won't go into that. And then I've just put a few bullet points about what we're doing looking forward to give the council on page 23 of the agenda, kind of things that we'll be looking at over the next 3 to 6 months. So I might pass over to Dave and then maybe open questions after that. Does that sound all right?
Yeah, thanks to you, Mr. Chair. I've just got 4 or 5 slides on bird flu, and then I can take questions on that, and then I've got 3 or 4 slides on wallabies of interest on that. I apologise now, they're not my finest work because I put together pretty quickly yesterday, so just bear with me. You'll all have heard and known about bird flu. It's a matter of when, not if. It's coming probably pretty shortly. Commonly called HPAI, high pathogenic avian influenza, or more commonly called bird flu, and the H5N1 is the strain of the HPAI. Highly contagious viral disease, spread by bird-to-bird contact through the droppings, saliva, and that gets indirectly put onto stock feed, paddocks, stock banks, ponds, wherever they're cultivated. And obviously we've got a very high mallard population, particularly in Southland, so it's going to be spread pretty quickly through those birds, for example. Comes to New Zealand by migratory birds, thought to be probably coming this spring, but it's hit Australia pretty quickly, Australia being one of the last continents to get it. Can cause high numbers of deaths in poultry, waterfowl, shorebirds and seabirds. Now, although it's called bird flu, unfortunately it can affect mammals as well, and livestock in terms of overseas it's affected dairy cattle, for example. Mammals on Heard Island, which is part of the Australian subantarctics, they had something like 13,000 elephant seal pups die supposedly through the bird flu. So it's quite likely to have an impact on marine life here as well. Symptoms, if you look at wild birds, for example, they'll go a bit lethargic. They might have a droopy head. They won't be able to hold the head up, so they might start swimming around in circles because they're disorientated. Obviously have more secretions at either end, and particularly at one end it'll be quite nasty. And you might see in your poultry and your chickens, they'll stop laying or laying less eggs. They'll go very quiet, and you'll definitely notice the difference because you're dealing with them on a day-to-day basis. So, current state of play, we've got, I think, 8 reported or confirmed cases in Australia now. There's 2 or 3 more cases being tested, so it's likely to start increasing. A couple of those are in New South Wales. Oh, sorry, 1 in New South Wales now, 2 in South Australia, and the 5 in Western Australia. As I expected to come here through the wild birds, through the migratory birds and then into the wild bird population. Eradication of the disease isn't possible. It's not something we're even considering. It's a virus. Once it's here, it's here. Remembering that the rest of the world's had this for several years and just had to live with it. How it's going to impact in New Zealand is, it will impact greatly, but we don't know if it's going to be the same impacts as what the overseas experiences have been. So one of the sad things is the impacts it might have on the native bird life. And again, our natives aren't overseas, so it's going to be a bit of a suck and see. But DOF are working on vaccinations for some of their native birds. Information on that. Message is that it's still a low public health risk, but a risk nevertheless. And if you're handling wild birds through duck shooting, for example, gutting and cleaning, and even the TD harvesting, quite a major concern for those sort of activities. MPI are the lead agency. They've sort of pushed quite a bit off down to the regional councils. Our main role is trying to support the other 3 councils, the TAs, to be prepared for this, and obviously helping and supporting the Southland community to be prepared. So a lot of comms is starting to go out at the moment. Over the last 2 or 3 months, there's been a lot of work on preparedness planning. So MPI paid for a consultant for all regional councils to have preparedness plans done. That funding was only there till the 30th of June, and then it ceased. So our plan, for example, is about 80% completed, and we're just engaged another consultant to help us finish that off over the next 2 to 3 weeks. Again, comms, that's going to be a big thing, and we're here to offer advice and information to people on what they do if they find dead birds in their backyard or on their farm. So in the event of an outbreak, the message remains the same, where if you see 3 or more sick or dying birds, you've got to ring the MPI Exotic Pest and Disease Hotline, 0800. The testing that MPI will organise probably will take 2 or 3 days to do. The testing itself is very quick, but time to get the sample up there and back. Once it's confirmed, there'll be a flurry of messages and emails and phone calls throughout New Zealand, starting with the CE here, cascading down, and some of us will get it multiple times. The action will depend where it is, what the location is, how many wild birds are in that area, what the public access is like, what other activities are happening there. We may consider containment on the initial outbreak, if you like, but that's probably going to be pretty futile. I'll take you back to the mallards, for example. If it's here, they're probably really likely to have it, and it could be anywhere, everywhere. So landowner responsibility, we're just here to support the community. If you decide that you want to pick up dead birds, we'll just give you the information and advice that you need and how to do that. So we're working through with the TAs at the moment on disposal, whether it goes in the wheelie bins or whether it goes out to AB Lime if you've got hundreds of dead birds. So that's still to be finished off. And I mentioned comms again, because it's going to be a big thing. But like I say, the rest of the world's had this for years. You've really got to live with it and get on with it. BAU needs to take priority as well. Huge social impact, I think, on New Zealand and Southland. Something we're not used to. It'll be new. And yeah, everyone will be running around when it first gets here. So I don't really have the answers on how we manage it properly, because it will depend where it comes, what the risks are, things like that. But the public health risk, as I say, is supposed to be meant to be pretty low, as long as you continue to cook your food as you normally would, cook your chickens and eggs the way you normally would, it kills the virus. I just remind you that there is a hell of a lot of information on the MPI bird flu website. When you click on there, there's about 11 tiles. And you click on one of those tiles, it'll take you to another several pages or PDFs or whatever you want to learn about. Some of them repeat themselves, but it's information overload. But I urge you to have a read of it in relation to the areas of your interest. So it could be dairy farming, could be chicken farming, recreational stuff. And as councillors and staff, it's important for us all to know that information to be able to pass on when you're talking around the barbecue or wherever you are. Questions on bird flu?
Thanks, Chairman. Look, Dave, you had up on the screen here mostly seabirds, shorebirds and so forth. Would land-based birds not be so susceptible?
But they're susceptible. We just have to wait and see to what level. Like overseas experience suggests that some birds are more vulnerable than others, but it's not all doom and gloom. It's not going to kill everything. Some birds will only get sick from it and then recover, whereas other birds, they may get sick, a certain percentage of them will die. Some will survive and carry on as normal. So it really is different birds, different impacts.
And if I could have a supplementary, Chair, overseas where it's perhaps been there for 6 or 8 years, have those wild bird populations recovered to an adequate level again?
A lot of them have, yes, yeah, but it can keep coming through in waves like a virus is expected to do.
Thank you.
I'll just jump in for a second, Dave. Do you, in answer to your question, Councillor Young, I know that DOC are particularly concerned about some of our endemic species. And Dave was telling me the other day they've started this program of vaccinating some like kakapo and others. But did you want to add anything on that?
I don't have a lot of information on that, on the progress or the results. It's probably too early for results, but obviously we all have fingers crossed that it is going to work. It may not be 100%, but it'll be interesting.
I guess just the reason for bringing it up is to make sure you're clear that there's different agencies holding different responsibilities on all of this. And as Dave alluded to, our role is quite limited in terms of comms and support for the TAs, but this is an MPI gig and DOC have obviously got some skin in the game as well.
Yeah, as I say, the social impact for a start will be quite huge, but I'll put it bluntly, Environment Southland isn't going to rush out with white overalls and start picking up dead birds. That's not our core business and it's not our focus. We're there for information and advice to provide you what you can or should do in your situation. We may recommend that you pick up birds for one reason or another, but if we do, this is how you should do it. I'd imagine politically there might be a bit of pressure come on all of us. Why aren't you out there doing something? But just please remember it's a virus. It's probably going to be pretty widespread. And even if you go out and clean up some dead birds somewhere, the next day they're going to be more dead birds or more sick birds. And this could go on for months and months. Yeah. I think for the TAs, it's more of an issue because obviously 200 dead mallards on Queets Park Ponds is pretty socially unacceptable. So that they will be wanting or needing to pick up birds from there.
Thank you. My question was, is the business as usual, is the broad guidance, is there any part of our workforce that would need to change or have their work disrupted as a result of any of this?
I don't know if change or disrupted is probably the right word, but just a general awareness. And one of the work streams we're working on at the moment is a guideline for internal staff on when they're doing field work, so how they keep themselves safe, how they should conduct their work. If there's potentially bird flu there, even if it's not there, this is what they could or should be thinking about doing, what they need to look at when they get to the site and think about. Just PPE, disinfectant, decontamination, that sort of thing. But it could affect like catchment, building with stop banks, biosecurity, out doing field work, water monitoring, water testing. So there is a whole lot of BAU that council is doing that may be affected.
We are also organising to run a training course basically and bring in our partners so that we can run a scenario basically. So if it does hit us, and as Dave says, we are quite likely to be the doorway potentially to New Zealand. Our partners know what's expected and whatever, so that might be in the next 6 or 8 weeks or something.
Right, I've got Morris, David and you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Jeff really asked my question, but I know that it occurs to me that it's more of a risk to birds that live in close proximity to one another rather than birds live that are more dispersed, like maybe birds like tuis and bellbirds, for example. They don't, they're very territorial and they don't live in big colonies, and I would have thought they'd be less susceptible to spread if it's coming from close contact and contamination of water the birds might be living in with it. Is that reasonable? I know Doc are a bit concerned about it, but it seems to me that might be less of a risk to those sorts of birds.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. I agree. It's probably less of a risk, but it's still a risk. Those birds are probably, even though they might be solitary or not in a group, they're probably still visiting areas where other birds have already been and dropped their deposits and stuff like that. So there's still a risk of them picking it up.
They need some sort of close contact, though, wouldn't
they? They do, yeah.
It's not spread by the wind or anything like that, is it?
No, it's basically, the saliva and the droppings, for example. So, but if another bird come and walk through or landed on the same branch, for example, they can still take it away.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Look, couple of things. Obviously, carping and lemmings coming up. You mentioned dairy. Brandenburg was spread by seagulls, and there's quite large populations at times to get around. So, what are your lessons to do with dairy? Is it dairy? Is it dairy sheep? What is it? And what does it look like? They get a bit sick, or do they actually die? Because you mentioned seals were dying, and they're quite big. So.
The main experience overseas was in the USA with dairy cattle, but it was largely linked to the fact the way they operate their large dairy barns and sheds, with stock feed and the birds also congregating and feeding on that stock feed and mixing that way. Although that could happen here. Look, it might be a case that you want to go out and scare off some of the seagulls and the mallards from wherever they're mixing with dairy cattle. But the dairy cattle example in the USA, I think they got a bit sick, loss of milk production for a short period of time, and then they came right. Yeah. But I'm not a virologist, so I'm not an expert on that side of it. But we obviously would just recommend that dairy farmers work in with their vets if there's anything suspiciously wrong.
The second part is around, I did ask a question the other day around, so if there's lots of dead birds around, does that lead to populations of rats and things going up, or are they affected?
Yeah, no, it was a good question. It's a wee bit of an unknown, but that's the way cycles work. Rats will feed on that sort of thing, so will scavenging ferrets. Potentially they have the ability to transport the virus. I'm not too sure how it might affect them, but again, it's wait and see.
Thank you, Ewan.
Yeah, so question, one for one, Dave, and one for the other. So, Dave Burgess, thank you. So it's interesting, isn't it? Because obviously TT have been migrating for the past period of years with bird flu in the Northern Hemisphere, but don't appear to have actually transported it down into air. If we would see, it suggests, would that be because it hasn't actually been prevalent in those areas that TT visit, or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, sorry, I don't know the timeframes, but it hasn't been in the likes of the Antarctic for that long a period. So the thought is, as it's building up down there, as the birds come down there recently, they'll pick it up now, rather than say 2 years ago.
Yeah, because TT generally come down through along the coast of the Pacific, is my understanding. So from the Northern Hemisphere.
It's a bit of a
You
get the cordwoods and things coming right from the Northern Hemisphere, so I don't know why they don't carry them. They flock around in big numbers. So
it's too cold here.
Well, obviously, it's just an observation. So, Dave, why you've got some work programs identified in the wire. The under the bridge, because my understanding is that is progressing. So
it's progressing. We've got the survey being done, and it's been turned into a bathy that's gone to the, don't quote me on here, but I think it's WSP, which is a consultant for NZTA, who are doing the design of the gravel removal, and so that's all tricking along. reasonable pace. And we're also at the same time talking to the same group of people around the Iron Bridge as well on the Uriti, which has got raised at the bus tour that we did. So similar sort of conversation there. So we have a couple of bits of work that I think are progressing reasonably well. Thank you. Dave's got another thing from the question yesterday on wallabies, and we thought just nip it in the bud and get it out of the way.
Yeah. Could I just suggest, can we just get some real clarity on disposal? That's probably my biggest concern is on our place, we'd probably have 1,000 dead mallards if it swooped through. So I think just getting real clarity on that, how we expect the community to deal with large numbers. And also, I guess, just a question whether you can answer or not is what's Fish and Game's role in this, being that there is large introduced species that they manage, and what are the learnings from overseas? Is there species that they are managing that have been problematic overseas or have shown resistance, and what's the approach here to maybe managing those if we're concerned about our native species being brought up there?
So we have the aim for Fish and Game, but not to a large degree. They've got their own set of work directly with MPI, as does the dairy industry and the poultry industry. So Fish and Game have plans in place, but I'm sorry, I can't give you too much info on what's in those plans. But being a wild bird, I'm not too sure how it's going to play out with them. But they're obviously a big player in the game as well, as our DOC. And as David said, we are planning on some scenario testing with the TAs, but DOC, Fish and Game and iwi and Public Health South will be involved in those.
And I guess just a consideration where as ICM pushing wetlands, and I for one a person that's doing it, and I can, I enjoy the wildlife, but yeah, we have got a huge number rolled up onto our property, and that's what we're looking for. But we just need to be aware of that as this plays out, and we're pushing wetlands so we've got to be really clear on our messaging how this will play out. I know that's really hard. It's not just a you problem; it's a whole of Morton Southland. But we don't want to lose momentum on wetlands, but at the same time, we don't be blind to the fact of the challenges that it will bring with open water. So, thank you.
Dave, do you just want to mention the disposal question in terms of the work that it is doing to help finalise those plans?
So as I mentioned, the MPI did create preparedness plans for us. They're 80% complete. We're finishing them off at the moment. The disposal work stream of that plan was nearly complete. We just need to run it past the TAs in terms of are they happy with the information that's in there. And what we're going to get out of that is a bit of a cheat sheet, if you like, that if we get phone from someone in Invercargill and they've got 2 dead birds, what's the advice to them? What's the advice to you as a farmer that might have 110 dead birds on your property, which might be burial, possibly burning, or you just leave them in situ, don't touch them. Bearing in mind that the minute you start trying to touch them logistically, you're exposing yourself to the virus, you're exposing your farm equipment and machinery to the virus, all those sort of things. So it may just be easier and quicker that you just leave them on the ground to let them dispose of naturally.
Logistically, that won't work when you're a pastoral farmer trying to feed stock. So the reality is we're going to have to intervene at some point.
Yep. It might be that you just throw them into the nearest tree lane or,
Thank you. Yeah. Perfect. No, but just, I think it's good we're having this discussion. So thank you. Roger, then you. Oh, sorry.
You was before me. That's very kind of you. I was just interested to understand if we have much knowledge about how much surveillance testing is going on. Obviously, if there's 3 dead birds swimming in a circle, hopefully people will report that. But is there a surveillance program that MPI are running independently that might give us insight as to the timing of it or not?
I think the answer is no, but please don't hold me to that. I'm not aware of any surveillance happening. I think it's just a matter of waiting for those reports to be made, and then they'll consider actioning those reports, depending on the quality of the information. But as you can appreciate, there's a whole lot of misinformation already starting out there as well.
It'll be a big impact when it comes though, so you won't miss it.
I think it'll be pretty noticeable. Like birds die anyway. There's all sorts of things out there. But
couple of things on that. Department of Conservation is doing quite a bit on the subantarctics, and as far as the information we've got at the moment, they haven't reached any of our subantarctics, but they are in other countries' subantarctic. So for some reason, they haven't spread to that. So DOC are keeping a reasonably eye on it. The other thing I will mention is MBI is funding some of this work. Some of it ES is going to have to pick up. We are ring fencing that expenditure, but also recognise the amount of work Dave's putting into it means that he can't do what he was planned to do. So please, but we have to do this work and we have to do it now, and so we don't have any alternative. So just recognise that there may be some areas that we may not be responding as quickly as we can, because Dave's not sure about working full-time on this job, but certainly losing a bit of sleep over it, shall we say.
Just the one, I suppose, the one population of bird species that no one seems to have a lot of oversight over is Canada geese, and it's quite significant in places. So that's, I suppose, something, and they are obviously out on pasture land, and if they are dying in large numbers, potentially it could be.
So you want to have to spread it.
I had to bring it up.
Justice.
It's also flawed.
No, thank you. Carry on.
Yeah, so I just got another quick 3 or 4 slides just on wallabies, because there was a bit of interest recently with ES making the submission. So you'll be aware that there is the National Wallaby Eradication Program led by MPI. Most regional councils have wallabies in their RPNP as an exclusion pest as well, as we do. Sorry, these maps are very crude, but it was just to give you a bit of an idea. So there's a national database where all our wallaby reports go into. ES doesn't actually hold a database for it, it's a national one. So at the moment, or as of yesterday, there was 6,459 reports in that database, which probably started 10 or 12 or so years ago. If you look at the alive category, there's 4,600 of those reports were alive. But when I say alive, people think they, or thought they saw a wallaby, so it's recorded as alive, but it could have been a hare or a possum or something else. So it's not physical alive wallabies. And also it contains reports from Canterbury and Bay of Plenty areas where naturally you have a lot of wallabies anyway. Just to break it down a fraction more, just zooming in on Canterbury, Otago and Southland, you'll note the red shaded area, or hopefully you can see that red shaded area in South Canterbury. That's what they call the containment area, where wallabies were contained to for a number of years or decades, but they've slowly spilled out of that area and crossed the Waitaki south, and you can see the number of reports there in the Otago region, or dotted through that region, and Southland, which I'll touch on next. So in Southland, we've had 29 reports over the last probably 10 years. 5 of those were roadkill dump ones. On crude autopsy, they had bullet holes in them, so we can hopefully rightfully assume that they've been brought down from a hunting expedition in Canterbury and then just thrown on the side of the road. We've also had 5 that were confirmed as possums. Good that people report them, but slightly misguided. And the rest are what I call unconfirmed. So we've had reports of a wallaby, but we're not too sure what it might have been that they think they saw. But all of those 29 take staff time to investigate. It might only be an hour's time and we decide it's not credible, or it could be several days' time when we've got to go out in the field and actually have a physical look or get contractors on the ground. But you can see the spread. A lot of them in Central Southland and Northern Southland. We had that cluster in Te Anau just last year or the year before that we investigated quite heavily. We've had one at the top of the map in Lake Alabasta area. Just a tramper went outside with a torch one night and saw something, pretty confident it was a possum, but he said it was a wallaby. And then Otago, just zooming in on there, they've had 271 reports. 70 are classed as dead or alive, so the rest are unconfirmed, probably mistaken identity. Can't quite see the colours that well, but I didn't demonstrate what the colours are on the slides. The colours represent a category that you pick once you've done an investigation. So it might be that you've done an inspection, so it's one colour, or you didn't do an inspection, it's another colour. It might be that you deem the information not credible, that's another colour. So it's just, yeah, I won't go too much detail there. But if you can pick out some of the orange ones, they're a physical wallaby, whether it's been shot by council or contractors. I just note down near the bottom of the map, you've got a couple of orange ones down around the Balclutha Clinton area. That was in the last 2 to 3 years. They haven't naturally migrated through from Waitaki. They've been hitched a ride on the back of a truck and put there.
Did we have any on the south of that? The one prior,
Not
orange one?
they'll be orange only because they were dumped as shot somewhere. Yeah.
You haven't found any live ones in South of the
No.
Apart from in the,
Queen's Park. So just to clarify, Queen's Park have a permit from Environment South and do hold one as an exemption. They've been verbally indicated that they'll probably not like to get another one if they wanted to replace it.
Dave, are there any
If
live,
it's zero.
Yeah, there was conditions on the permit.
Dave, are there any live ones south of the Clutha? Any confirmed live wild ones south of the Clutha River?
Not the Clutha River as such, just the couple around Clinton, Belclutha area. One credible report was up in the head of the Pommy last year or the year before, and a credible but unconfirmed one in the Nevis. So, not saying they were wallabies, but it was credible information, and that's close to our boundary. So any day we could have something hop across the boundary, excuse the pun, but I'm more worried about people also bringing them in on the back of a truck. And if they got into northern Southland, it could take several months to be aware of them in there. And I'm up around some of Jeff's country and Nokamai, Glenary.
if you have a look on the national website, there's also modelling of spread, and I think it was done in 2025, and they've got 20-year spread. So they've got two circles on there, a 45 and a 65. So unfortunately, it does show it's spreading. It's actually growing, not decreasing. So that's why I think that submission you made yesterday was quite important. The best wallaby is a dead wallaby.
And just to add, Mr. Chairman, no, we do work in closely with both ORC and ECAN in relation to wallaby reports and wallaby information, training, new technology, tools and that sort of thing. So we're also lucky to be supported by MPI and ORC if we do have a live wallaby report or credible wallaby report that we need to investigate. There is a small amount of funding through ORC/MPI to assist us in doing that.
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask Dave, is it possible to two things? First of all, stop them from getting over the Clutha River, stop them at bridges or stop them at dams by having some kind of deterrent device or something. And is it possible to fine for people that have brought them into would people be able to be prosecuted if they brought a live one in?
Yeah, under the Biosecurity Act, you're not allowed to hold, harbour or possess a wallaby. So that's a pretty big fine. But at the end of the day, you've got to catch them in the act and then prove where they brought it from. And a good lawyer on both sides could do a lot of damage.
What about stopping them at the dams?
Stopping them at dam, yeah. I could find out for you. It hasn't worked in the past in terms of the Waitaki, but it might have been too late after the fact to do it up there. Obviously, cattle stops and things like that are one deterrent, but I don't know how you'd go about putting those over extensive road bridges and yeah.
We built a 45-kilometre long wallaby-proof fence down the Tekapo River, partnership with ECAN, Mackenzie District and MPI. It's not quite completed because there was some debate about where it should go on some of them, and the dams were, because you've got the river right up the top end in the township, that was a spot that they couldn't do, so it goes right up to the bridge, but there is a couple of gaps in there. But that's an example, and look, I'm sorry, off the top of my head, I can't remember what it cost us, but it was not cheap. Yeah.
But it also makes a good rabbit fence as well.
Oh, it's an excellent rabbit fence.
Thanks, Chair. Just in response to Councillor Rodway's query on fines and so forth, I think the fines might be up to about $100,000 and several years in prison for taking any exotic animals into a into an area where there's no existing population. So the penalties are certainly quite severe if they can be caught.
Lyndall.
Thanks, Chair. Excuse me, not really a question, a bit of a rant. After our wallaby discussion a couple of weeks ago, I happened to sit down and watch the tally and saw an item about a woman in Waitaki who has MPI permit for her wallaby rescue. I nearly left my seat. So I'm a bit perplexed as to why MPI would be investing money to get rid of wallaby, but also allowing that scale of nurturing and care for the very cute little wallaby joeys. I mean, it's not really a question. I just cannot believe that there's double resource being wasted. And I appreciate it. It's this lady's, kind of livelihood, and she runs it as a kind of a petting zoo thing for tourists. However, I find that discombobulating. The best way to describe it.
They are endemic in her area, though.
Yes.
Like me.
So it's their fault.
I'm not sure endemic's quite.
No.
But,
And notwithstanding it's their kind of tourism, come and visit wallaby country. Yes, they are contained, but she's growing baby wallabies into big wallabies, and then what happens to them? Anyway, that's my rant. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. That's and just on a final note, thank you, David Damson, for, I think this is your last report to us, is my understanding, is that correct?
Okay.
So thank you for your time, and it's good to have them got to.
So just one comment. In respect of the report, and this is a really minor detail, could we specify the reporting period specifically, rather than just referring to no reporting period? Because I know there are delays between papers coming to executive for approval, and then when we consider them at council, and then when the next meeting is scheduled or third. So it just would help if the report actually was specifically said for the reporting period starting and providing a start finish, because the quantum of work that's delivered can be quite impressive, and it can be quite useful to make it evident within what time frames specifically that quantum of work is being delivered. So that would be really helpful.
It did actually have a question about the WAL, actually, from your report, David, and it was about broom fencing being replaced. And I guess it's just interesting to track the expenditure that directly relates to Meridian, the way that they let flows go, whatever, is things progress maybe in some sort of new arrangement. You have all that toted up so that you can say here's the direct result of the way the river runs, which is natural.
And I think there is some reports, David, that have been done in the past, and look, I'm sorry, I'm not over them, about where their regime and their cost expense, and I think it's a good time to have those conversations, because I think their resource consent's coming up in 31 or 29 or something. They're coming up shortly, so it is a good chance, but there is some background work being done on that, and I know I've looked at it briefly, but I'm sorry, I'm not over it, but we can certainly regurgitate. I think, did you have a workshop on that just recently?
Through JS, they had an update, a YR related update conversation a couple of weeks ago, but we've got the breakdown in terms of expenditure that's occurring on the YR that's sourced from Meridian versus sourced from the Catchment liaison contributor, just so we can.
I guess building a good case as to what the costs are. So when you go forward, you've got that at your fingertips.
We've done questions.
Well up and David, what flavour was the pie?
Sorry?
What flavour was the pie?
Wallaby.
Thank you. Right, can we, has someone move to receive that report? Thank you, David. Those in favour? Gary, thank you. Right, now we're going to move into publicly excluded. I'll move it. Do that, then we'll move back.
We're moving into public excluded section of the meeting to enable any local authority following information to carry out without prejudice or disadvantage.
Move there. Give it a second. All in favour? Against? Gary, thank you. Yes.